When I couldn't find the remote, I felt like this movie was holding me hostage. Hello and welcome to another video. If you're watching this, you're probably my friend that I sent this to. And if you're watching this and you're not somebody that I know in real life, you're my friend now too. I'm Bailey, and we're besties now. I remembered a movie that I loved as a kid that I recently rewatched. So I watched it again and took notes so I could tell you guys about it because I can't believe I liked this movie as a kid. The movie in question is called Dinotopia, and it came out in 2002. When I watched it as a kid, I thought it was like super cool, coolest movie ever. It's a city. There's dinosaurs and people that are just members of society. Not like Jurassic Park where the dinosaurs are like in a zoo. We are all in a community all together with dinosaurs. And there was one specific scene that I remembered where it's like two people, an older man and a younger woman sitting down for dinner. And she says to her dad, "Eat to live, father. Do not live to eat." That is the only scene I remember from Dinotopia. So I remembered that scene randomly and wondered if I could watch Dinotopia. And I can. It's on Peacock. So I watched it. I didn't remember a single thing about this movie. So let's go on this journey together. Two things that I think are really important before we talk about this movie is that one, some of the dinosaurs are CGI and some of the dinosaurs are puppets. Tag yourself, I guess. I think I would rather be a puppet, but the CGI ones can talk. Oh, look who it is. The other thing about this movie is that everybody's acting is so stiff, monotone, that I feel like they would all fit right in with Secret Life of the American Teenager. So at the start of the movie, we meet David, Carl, and their dad. I'm just going to call him Dad for the rest of this video because I honestly don't know if we ever hear his name. David is a huge nerd and also a coward. He's afraid of heights, and this comes up like 4 times. You know he's a nerd because he wears a shirt tucked into his pants with a belt and a chunky watch and has a buzz cut. He looks familiar because he was in Resident Evil, which I don't think I've ever actually watched. I think I might have gone to one at a drive-in theater with my friends, but I fell asleep, and sometimes it's playing on the TVs at the gym. So I've seen him on TV. Also, he was in The Flash, which I did watch a couple seasons of. The other brother is Carl, and he's the cool guy. You can tell because he's wearing a hoodie, and he has swoopy hair. And this is my first, like, just right off the bat, I had a hard time believing that David is the lame one because he is bigger than Carl. Carl is kind of skinny, and if I'm going to pick which one of you is more of an action hero, I'm probably going to go with David. Carl being told by Dad to look out for David doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But at the start of the movie, they're going to go island jumping on a little plane. And when they get on the plane, the only person wearing like any headset is Dad, which aren't little planes extra loud and you need to wear at least hearing protection? And then he like turns to Carl, David sitting in the backseat, he's like, "Yeah, you drive the plane," and just closes his eyes and takes a nap without handing the headset to Carl. I don't know a ton about planes, but I think you have to be able to communicate with air control. They fly into a storm and Dad does not wake up until they like shake him to wake him up, and then the plane crashes and Carl helps David get out of the plane, and then he goes back for Dad, and the plane is sinking. He can't undo his seatbelt, and he's like, "Go, go." Well, you know, without talking. Underwater noises. There's no sort of life preserver, life vest thing, nothing. And then we see a big fish go through in the water. It's a dinosaur. It's an underwater dinosaur. Don't ask me what kind of dinosaur it's called. I don't know. And if we're being honest right now, I was not the kid obsessed with dinosaurs. My older brother was, which is probably why I watched this movie. So then they swim to shore, and as soon as they get on an island, they just start hiking into it, which it's unclear how far and how long they've been swimming. I personally think I would have taken a nap on the beach at least for a little bit. But David is upset that they left Dad behind and wants to go back, and Carl goes, "What happened? Wait, sorry. I have to act. What happened. They find a cave entrance that's shaped like a dinosaur, and Remus Lupin comes out of it and then just starts blowing shit up with dynamite and says he has permission, but I don't think... Oh, because he's looking for sunstones. So he's like an archaeologist and he's looking for sunstones. I don't think I've heard of one just blowing shit up, but go for it, I guess. And they ask where they are, and he says Dinotopia, and then doesn't expand on that. But welcome to Dinotopia. The boys tell Remus Lupin that they want to call the Coast Guard, and he's like, dude, no, sorry, there's no phones. Can't call the Coast Guard. And when they're confused about it, they're like, we've never heard of this place. They're like, yeah, it's because we're cut off. The only way out is through the Razor Reef, and no boats can really get through that, so every human here has kind of washed up here, and we've created a society. But can airplanes fly over it? Like, I understand people can't really leave because all they have is boats, but, like, Google Earth has... Well, it's 2002. When was Google Earth a thing? They follow Remus Lupin into a town, and right away they notice things are weird because it's a bilingual town. But instead of like Canada, where it's English and French, it's English and dinosaur language. So the letters are like footprints facing different ways, and there's just dinosaurs there. And then like this big one comes in and causes a whole ruckus, and then this hot chick comes out of nowhere and like takes his tooth out and is like, toothache, solve that problem, even though he totally just did so much property destruction. Because that's the point where you're like, okay, so the dinosaurs aren't super sentient, except that they are later. Don't think too hard. Just enjoy the vibes is the best way to enjoy this movie. Both boys are immediately into her. The advice they get from Remus Lupin is to go to Waterfall City. It's never explained why he tells them to go there. They go up to the hot chick to talk to her, find out her name is Marion, and that she is also going to Waterfall City. I don't know how they bought a ticket to ride the Brachiosaurus to Waterfall City, because what money would they have? Did Remus Lupin pay for it? Did Marion? Can you just travel for free? Wait. I don't know if we ever hear about money being a thing. One thing that I do appreciate about these movies, though, is that all of the dinosaurs you see are the dinosaurs that were super cool in the early 2000s, mostly the ones that were in Land Before Time. Their convoy stops in a village that had like T-Rex tracks and poop and was destroyed by T-Rexes. Don't worry, most of the people were okay. And they take shelter overnight. And then there's this scene that feels like The Walking Dead because David in the middle of the night starts whispering, Carl, Carl, Carl. And then I did genuinely laugh because he's starting to be like, because Carl's like, what's your problem? What's your problem? He's like, well, I mean, I thought, and he goes, you thought a T-Rex was going to eat you? And then immediately after a T-Rex, like, comes in through the roof. And then we have an action sequence, and then some guys like ride on the flying dinosaurs, they're called skybacks, show up. We see them later. I don't know if they're military or police. Are they law enforcement or are they just defense from the carnivorous dinosaurs? I don't know, but they show up to help. And they're so Star Wars. No, I can't explain. I don't know those movies very well, but it's so Star Wars. They get to Waterfall City, and it's even more Star Wars. I don't know a ton about these movies. Definitely the prequels, which were still coming out at the time. This movie came out in 2002. The city, it's not where the frog people live, because I think that was underwater. But there's a parade. Maybe I'll make a series where I watch Star Wars and actually pay attention. They're welcomed to Waterfall City by the mayor, who turns out is Marion's dad. And he looks like this. I would love to be him for Halloween. They have to sign a scroll, and then they're accepted as members of Dinotopia, just like of society. What are you going to do? Go live in the wilds? It's not an option. So they're accepted as members of society in Dinotopia. David and Carl are both like, well, we have to go look for Dad. We have to go look for him. And they're like, no, sorry, dude. Most people actually lose somebody because everybody that joins society and isn't born into it has washed up on shore. Sorry. They go to the library and they have books instead of scrolls, and the dinosaurs like walk on a little treadmill so that they can read because they don't like flipping pages or they can't flip pages. But later we see books. Stop thinking. We meet Zippo. He's a talking dinosaur. I don't know what kind of dinosaur he is. He's very nice, and everybody is too mean to him in this movie. He's just an anxious little guy. Also, I don't know why some dinosaurs talk and some don't. They say all dinosaurs can talk to each other, but not all dinosaurs know human languages. But humans are Zippo's special interest, so that's why he learned a bunch of human languages. But if everybody speaks English in Dinotopia, and he says he learns French, why would he learn French? Everybody speaks English or Saurian. I think that's what they call it, dino language. And we never hear the carnivores talk. So then they find out that they're going to be living with Zippo, and they get to Zippo's house, and he had a human life partner, but they make it very clear it was a spiritual connection. They definitely did not. Carl is not having any of it, which is fair because he is, I think, a teenager. He's grieving his dad, and David is like, damn, this place is cool. I'm going to assimilate. And they fight about that a lot. Marion receives a family heirloom from her dad. It's a sunstone necklace with a note that says, find the light. They were enrolled in Waterfall City Academy, and when they get there for their first day of school, it's like all 7-year-olds. And they're looking at this like pillar thing that has the codes to live by. Eat to live, do not live to eat is one of the codes to live by. but there's one at the bottom that's incomplete. All it says is FIN, and nobody knows what the rest of it, and we've never known. We also learned that that thing came from the world beneath, which is where dinosaurs took refuge at the dawn of time, but it's definitely mythical. Carl ditches school to teach Zippo how to play ping pong, and Marion takes David to see the prime sunstone so that we can get some exposition. The sunstones power the city, and as far as I can tell, keep carnivores away. She might have explicitly said that, but this movie just like dumps lore on you super hard and then just moves on. There'll be like long stretches of just like running. Hey, look at that dinosaur. And then in one conversation, you hear like 5 important things. So she might have explained that, and I missed it because I was reacting to the sunstone powers the other sunstone and also the city. And at night, they have to open the window so they can recharge all of the other sunstones. And for some reason that we don't know, sunstones are failing and dying, which makes the city get invaded by dinosaurs, and then people are in danger. So we're having an energy crisis. David and Carl fight about assimilation again, and David makes a shitty comment to Carl about, well, who was flying the plane? So Carl goes to Remus Lupin because he wants off this island. Remus Lupin does too. Remus Lupin says that there's like a map that they need that's at the library, but only Zippo has access to it, and he calls Zippo a scaly, and the way he says it, this is like definitely implied to be a slur. So if we're on Dinotopia and the mayor is a human, is there racism against dinosaurs?
They have a slur.
And then Remus Lupin says that he hates dinosaurs because if you disagree with them, they just attack you, and one bit his leg off. And Carl says he's not going to leave without David, but David's a bit too far gone, a bit too into living with dinosaurs. Zippo is super upset when he discovers that the book has been stolen, though, because that doesn't happen here. So then they graduate from this academy for 7-year-olds, and they were asked to write an essay about how are we to live. And David apparently wrote the longest response in history of 17 pages. How many pages do you think these 7-year-olds are writing? And Carl cheats and just writes the lyrics of Bohemian Rhapsody. So then David and Carl fight about that. We suddenly get so much dumped on us about David and Carl. David and Carl have different moms, but the same dad. And David thinks dad is never around and not a good person, but Carl still worships him, and Carl doesn't want to hear a bad word about him.
Kind of makes you think, doesn't it? I'm almost glad he's gone.
So that's why they fight. And then they both fall over a balcony and down a waterfall. And then they tumble down the waterfall. Somehow they live and they wash up in the jungle. And David is like down for the count, and Carl has to take care of him now. Zippo and Marion feel really bad, so they decide that they're going to try to find them. And then Marion kidnaps a postal bird. Looks like a parrot and it can talk. She kidnaps it and then tells it to just fly down the river, and anybody that it sees stop and ask, are you David or Carl? And then it does find him and flies back, but we didn't hear the rest of her plan. Thank God Carl stayed still, because the bird finds him. He's like, are you David or Carl? And he goes, yeah, I'm Carl. And the bird's like, okay, message has been delivered, and just flies away. And then, they come back with it. But what if Carl kept going? So they meet up, and Marion somehow revives David in a way that makes no sense to me. She touches his shoulder and says his name a couple times, and then he wakes up. I think she's magic. Meanwhile, Zippo and Carl explore, and they find ruins, and they think it's an entrance into the world beneath, but there's crocodiles around there, because remember, crocodiles are dinosaurs. They never stopped being dinosaurs. They just didn't die. We still have them. It turns out it's ancient ruins, and legends say it's guarded by carnivores, and that's when it hit me. This is kind of like Zootopia, where they say only herbivores can be productive members of society. Speaking of productive members of society, they do escape away from the crocodiles. There's another action scene, and then they meet up with Marion's mom, who doesn't live with her dad. And she gives them jobs to do and says, Carl is of the earth, and he needs to help raise the baby dinosaurs. And David is of the sky, so he's going to train to be a skybax. But isn't David afraid of heights? Yeah, that's his character arc, is to not be afraid of heights anymore. But before that, David is unconscious while they're with Marion's mom, and Marion and Carl get to know each other, and I think they skinny dip. There's a shot of them swimming, and I don't see any shirts, and they make out. Get it, Marion? So now our story is split 3 ways, because Zippo is in the city with Remus Lupin, and then Marion goes with Carl to Canyon City, because there's the Skybacks, and then there's Pteranodons, and her mom wants her to make contact with the Pteranodons. Somehow my phone knew how to spell Pteranodon and would autocorrect it for me. And then Carl is at the hatchery and also meeting up with Remus Lupin occasionally. So David has a hard time. He has to go on the simulator and it's really tough and he keeps getting thrown off of it. And I like how he just kind of goes limp to fall off. Again. So he has to like lean into it. He has to conquer his fear of heights. There's like a rite of initiation. It's like a big gap in the rocks on a cliffside and they have to jump over it and carve their name into the wall. And he won't do it. So then the guy in charge of him makes him like spend a night in a skybacks. I thought skybacks were the riders, but apparently it's the dinosaur. So he spends the night in a skybacks nest so he can bond with one. And Marion was supposed to make contact with the pteranodons, which apparently means touching their nose and staring at them. Kind of like how she revived David. So she like bonds with this albino pteranodon because he was rejected by the rest of the herd, and he flies off and then two other ones attack her. So then she's told that she's not allowed to talk to the dinosaurs anymore. But she's been like weird and jealous whenever David hangs out with other girls. So she spends the night with him in the dinosaur nest. Nothing crazy happens as far as I can tell. Marion tells David that he needs to, what did she say? Speak its name by finding it inside himself for what the albino dinosaur is called. So he goes with Freefall. I think he made that up. To graduate, David has to call a dinosaur by going like this. And it's supposed to fly to him, and then he's going to climb up on it and fly away. Carl comes to graduation, which is at least nice of him. They've been fighting a lot up to this point. So after being unsuccessful, David's super upset. Carl says Dad would have been proud of you, and David's like, actually, I'm glad Dad's not here. I don't want to be a disappointment in front of him again.
I'm almost glad he's gone.
And then he decides to go back, calls Freefall. Freefall comes, and they fly away, and all the other new recruits are like shocked and scramble to the edge as if they didn't all just do that themselves. I guess he's special. Is it because it's a different breed of dinosaur? I don't know. They talk so fast and dump so much lore all at once that it's hard to keep everything straight. I was taking notes while watching this movie and I still got confused. So Carl's storyline, he goes to the nursery and they give him egg number 26 and say he has to take care of it, and it hatches and the dinosaur is a little girl. She's a Chasmosaur. 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 And he's told that this is his saurian life partner. And he's supposed to name it. And he's super not into this, so he names her 26 because that was the number on her egg. So then meanwhile, Zippo goes to like the high council or court or something to tell them about the findings of that entrance to the cave. And everybody's like super against it. So then he and Remus Lupin remind everybody we are like at the precipice of an energy crisis. It has started. There's probably sunstones down there. And Remus Lupin gets escorted out. So Remus Lupin tells Carl that he was kicked out of Waterfall City for asking the wrong questions. And they talk about what it would take to be able to leave. And Remus Lupin says that he needs a sunstone. And Carl's like, no, I'm not going to do that. But then does steal one. And then when Remus Lupin opens the bag that it was in, there's just a rock in it. But also he was fixing up a boat to try to escape, and Remus Lupin sabotaged it. And when he sails away, 26 is sitting on the shore yelling, "Mom!" and then jumps into the water. And also it took Carl a really long time to realize his boat was sinking, but he was still sitting in it until he saw 26 jump into the water, and I guess she can't swim. So he like swims back and rescues her, and now I'm wondering, how much does she weigh? She looks kind of heavy. So then they all get back together after David's graduation. I don't remember seeing a conversation about deciding to go back, but they do go back to the entrance to the world beneath. Lupin gives Carl a gun. Actually, it's a flare gun. Sad. Then they go into, I think it's a temple, but it might be a cave, and there's a weird whirlpool in it, and Carl accidentally drops a flare down it. And then they're like, I hear something. What is that? So Carl's like, yeah, I got a great idea. And just shoots the flare gun straight up into the air and wakes up a ton of pteranodons. And they just like fly around. So then action sequence to escape. And the commander of the Skybacks Squad. No, because squads are smaller groups. We're going to say leader of the Skybacks Rider is there and says, Carl and David, you're under arrest for breaking almost every law by rule of the mayor. And then they have to ride home in a cage. The court tells them that they have to resume their studies to learn why what they did was wrong. And also Carl is losing custody of 26 and she's going to be put in an orphanage. And he's upset about that. I guess they've bonded now. But also we barely see him holding her. Zippo asks if he can make an appeal because I guess he's their lawyer. And they're told not for a year. So they're on house arrest, but nobody there is ready to quit looking for sunstones. So they make a plan and they poison the dinosaur guard stationed outside of Zippo's house and then break into the library to steal a map while Remus Lupin suspiciously smokes a cigar. Then we find out he has a real gun. They find the map, we have an action sequence, they go on a water slide in a boat to get out of the city, and that looks super fun. They find a shipwreck, and turns out that's where they're supposed to meet up with Lupin, and the whole way they're like, where are we? He acts like we were just supposed to know, but they actually do find him. And there's a submarine in the shipwreck, and it's decaying, but also works just fine and is powered by sunstones, but specifically the one on Marion's necklace. So they leave in the submarine and leave Zippo and Marion behind. And while they're on their way to the world beneath, they pass, wouldn't you believe it, the plane that these brothers crashed in. And the doors open and they look into it and straight up don't see any signs of their dad. Is he dead? Is he eaten by fish? There'd be bones? Shirts? Nothing. So then they get there and they find that code that had been cut off. And guess what? After Finn, F-I-N, it says D, the light. Find the light. Same note on Marion's necklace. Remus Lupin finds a cave full of sunstones, and I am genuinely wondering how they're not blind. These things look bright through my TV. They also do that cave explorer meme that I've been seeing lately to get in there. They fill like a whole trunk full of sunstones, and then Remus Lupin is like, yeah, dude, now our submarine is like too overweight though. I'm leaving you here. Pulls a gun on them. He fights them, beats them up. And who appears? David and Carl's dad. But he has a crazy beard now and is like weak from living in a cave.
I'm almost glad he's gone.
So Remus Lupin shoots Carl in the leg and then escapes. But don't worry, because he gets eaten by an underwater dinosaur. At which point I'm wondering what happens to sunstones when they're wet. What happened to those sunstones that were in the submarine? We'll never know. David says he doesn't know how to get out because all the explorers came and went by that submarine. But Dad said he's walked maybe 200 or 300 miles of these caves. And they're like, oh, do you know a way out? And he says, yeah. And he takes them to this whirlpool. And guess what's there? The flare. So they realize these whirlpools are connected. And David, I guess, had a sunstone in his purse. And they use that as their light to swim from one whirlpool to the next. Once again, we're at that entrance with the bridge with the crocodiles. They run across it. And then free fall appears. So David flies back with a sunstone and leaves Dad and Carl behind. Meanwhile, back at home where Marion and Zippo are, the head of the Skybacks Flyers wants everybody from Dinotopia to go to Waterfall City because so many sunstones are failing that he thinks they should all be in one place. And the mayor's like, no, dude, we don't have the infrastructure for that. But then their sunstone starts failing and he's like, Marion, give me your necklace. And she's like, funny you should say that. I gave it to David and Carl. Oh, it powered the submarine, but because Remus Lupin double-crossed them, at some point I think Carl got suspicious because he stole it and it was in his pocket. So that's part of why Remus Lupin got eaten. And we know he's dead because his wooden leg floated to the top of the water in the cave. And there's more than 10,000 pteranodons coming towards the city, and they don't show it, but I imagine it being like that scene in Jurassic World where
they like fly down and pick you up and take you away and then drop you and then the big shark thing eats you.
I liked Jurassic World. I saw that one in theaters. Do you guys remember the Dairy Queen? What do they call them? The concrete mixer? Wait, that's Culver's. Blizzards. The Dairy Queen blizzards that were for Jurassic World. Those were so good. I ate so many that summer. Everybody from Volcanium is dead. And people are fleeing to Waterfall City, and it's not safe there either. So David flies there, and he's trying to take his sunstone to where the prime sunstone is to, like, ward them off and recharge all the other ones, but he drops it. So Marion picks it up, and she takes it there, but then she's knocked unconscious, so then Zippo puts it in. Also, at some point in this chaos, Zippo confesses his love for Marion. Why is everybody's into her? I think we need more women in these movies. Why isn't Zippo afraid of sunstones? But I think you're scared of sunstones if you're a carnivore. But I'm not 100% sure why it got the pteranodons to leave. But Zippo's like, yeah, I can pick this up and put this in. So then David receives a medal for his bravery. His job on Skyback Squadron is restored. 26 is at the ceremony. Marion is holding her. And he says that he wants to join the hunt looking for his dad and his brother, because there's still been no signs of them. And then they walk out of wherever they were, and Dad and Carl are sitting in like a wagon, and it's full of sunstones, and they've saved everybody. The end. So I have a couple questions about this movie. One, Do the sunstones in the caves restore each other, just being around each other? Or does the prime sunstone restore them, but how would it reach them? Do they have to be able to see each other to recharge? Also, how big is Dinotopia? Because we see multiple biomes. Canyon City kind of looks like the Grand Canyon. And then Waterfall City, okay, it looks like Star Wars, but then there's also jungle, and it's kind of like Great Plains, kind of, when they're with Marion's mom. How big is Dinotopia that there's this many biomes? Why aren't all the dinosaurs scared of sunstones? Is there dinosaur racism? There's definitely like carnivore, herbivore. Are omnivores part of society, or do they have to choose to be vegetarian? Are humans higher on the social ladder than dinosaurs? Is this a planet in Star Wars? Because they're dressed like they're from Star Wars. I didn't know that autocorrect on my phone knew how to spell so many dinosaur names. It's been very helpful, but I was also a little bit surprised. Do you remember at the beginning of the video when I said that this was the only scene I remembered from Dinotopia? Eat to live, father. Do not live to eat. Did you notice that scene didn't happen? There's 7 Dinotopia movies on Peacock. And this movie, between the confusing lore, very real looking dinosaurs, the very, very real looking dinosaurs, and the secret life of the American teenager acting.
I'm such a whore.
Well, you're mine for.
When I couldn't find the remote, I felt like this movie was holding me hostage. Like, I want to know how it ends because I liked this movie as a kid, but it made me want to scream at some point. So do I watch 6 more? Do we get just to that scene and then turn it off? Let me know what you want to see. I'm willing to sit through dinosaur movies for you guys because you're my friends. So let me know in the comments what you think I should do. But you know what you should do is like and subscribe. This is my safe space to yap, so if you enjoyed listening to me just talk on end about a movie that I'm not even sure if I liked or not, subscribe for more. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!